Hello friends, welcome to LeggLife. In today's video, we are actually doing something that a lot of you have asked for a while. Today, we are talking about books. If you've watched our channel for any length of time, you will know that reading is something I'm very passionate about, and this is actually a video that Adam has been trying to get me to make for a really long time. So today we're actually going to just talk about books that I have read in 2020 and looking forward to 2021, the kind of stuff I want to read. We're going to start with how many books I completed in 2020. So in my thought process, a book that I count as a book has to have chapters. So it doesn't have to have, 47 chapters. It can have 5 chapters, but it has to have chapters in order to be counted in my book list. So all of these books have chapters. They're long-ish. I completed in 2020 155 books. We do still have a few days left, and so I will probably complete a couple more before the end of the year, but so far 155. That is actually the most books that I've ever read in a year, and I think this year was a little different than most years. We did spend quite a bit of the year in hunker down thanks to COVID, and so I had a lot more time on my hands than I usually do. I was also a lot more anxious. My anxiety was a lot higher than it usually is, and when I am anxious, I read, and it kind of brings me down. So I've read a lot more this year than I really ever have in my life. We also had a very special guest with us for quite a bit of the year. As you know, Auburn came and stayed with us, and she and I read similar kinds of books, and so I actually got a lot of book suggestions from her. We were able to kind of read and discuss a lot of books, and so that was kind of a motivator for me to read even more because I had somebody to talk about them with. So I mentioned that I still have a couple more books that I will probably finish before the end of the year. I am currently reading 3 different books. I started Ready Player 2, and I'm having a little bit of trouble getting into it, and I don't really know why. I love Ready Player 1. I've read it many times, and I am just struggling with Ready Player 2. So I'm in the middle of that, but not making a lot of progress. I'm also reading A Christmas Carol. It's a tradition. I read it every year, usually before Christmas, but it didn't happen this year, so I'm currently reading it. And then I'm also reading a book called Stuck on You. By the end of 2020, I'm assuming that I will finish Stuck on You and A Christmas Carol. Now I'm going to talk about some of the books that I read this year, starting with my favorite new book or series that I read this year, both of it which actually were recommended by Auburn. These are both series. I read The Lunar Chronicles, and I loved them. And then I also read The Great Hunt. There's 2 books in that series, and I really loved them too. And a series that I reread this year that I have read many times. I read The Selection, and I know a lot of you actually went and read it too. I love this series, and I've read it, like I said, many times, and I reread it this year, and I never regret it. I always love this series. Now, out of the books that I read in 2020, my biggest surprise was a book called A Countess Below Stairs, also recommended by Auburn. I loved this book. I didn't know what to expect going into it. It's one book, it's not a series. It was beautifully written, and just one of those books where without a lot of words they described a character perfectly, so you knew exactly who this person was, what they looked like, what they would talk like. It was amazing. I loved this book. And my biggest disappointment this year, and I know a lot of you are probably going to not agree with this, but Crazy Rich Asians. I went into this book with a lot of really high expectations because I'd heard so many good things, and I did not like it. I didn't like it. It's a book that I really had to force myself to finish. I couldn't get into the book. I didn't like the characters. I didn't like the style of writing. Just not my thing. So if it's yours, I'm glad. It just wasn't mine. So looking back at the books that I read in 2020, there were a lot of them. And honestly, a lot of young adult, sweet romance kind of books. They're really easy to read, and they go really quick, so that's really why I was able to fly through quite a lot of them. They're usually in the 200-page range. They're pretty short, pretty easy, and just kind of sweet romances. They're just cute, and so they were fun to read. They were easy to read, and I was able to just plow through them. I do actually have a plan going into reading. I have different genres that I read at different times of the day. I cannot read books that I'm really super into at night because it sucks me in. It gets my mind going, and I don't get tired, and I don't go to bed. So that's kind of when I read like those romance books. They're really super easy to read, and they make me tired, and so I can read a chapter or two and go to sleep. But then like dystopian or like kind of action books, I cannot read at bedtime because they don't make me tired. So I'll read them at lunchtime or in the evenings, like as we're kind of winding down. So that was looking back at 2020. Let's look forward to 2021. My book goal for the year is 75 books. Honestly, that was my goal for 2020. And I hit 75, so I moved it to 100, and then 125, and then 150, and then I just quit moving it, and I read 155. So we'll see where 2021 lands. Like, I hope that things are more open, that life can kind of get back to a more normal rhythm. So maybe I won't read as many books as I did this year, so I'm setting it at 75. Books that I'm excited to read in 2021. A lot of you have recommended the series Fablehaven, and one of you actually sent me the first book in the series, so I am excited to read that. There are also a few books that I want to reread. I love Harry Potter, and it's been a few years since I've read them, so I'm planning on rereading that whole series this year. I am also looking forward to rereading The Red Queen. I actually haven't finished that series. I read all of them except the last one. And I bought the last one and tried to start it, and I was like, I don't remember who these people are and what's happening because it's been a while since I read the series, so I just need to start the series back over and read from the beginning. Because I love to read, and because you guys know I love to read, we do get a lot of questions concerning reading and books and that kind of stuff on our channel, so I'm just going to talk about a few of those. First question is, how do I read so many books? For me, reading isn't just something that I do when I have time, when I have a big block of time to read. For me, it's every little moment that I can spare. So like I said, my lunch break at work, I will read. Before I go to bed, I will read. In the grocery line at the store, I will read. I have books on my phone, and I will stand there and I'll read a chapter while I'm waiting to check out. For me, it's kind of redeeming those small moments for something that I love to do. So that really like helps me read a lot, because it is just, a chapter here and there, or a half hour here or an hour there. It's not like I don't have 8 hours a day that I just sit and read. It's just kind of these little snippets throughout the day. Another question I get a lot is, what kind of books do I like? I will read mostly anything that is fiction. I'm not a huge fan of nonfiction biographies, that kind of stuff. I will read them occasionally. Not really a huge fan of them. So a lot of fiction, a lot of like the dystopian kind of young adult stuff, because they are usually fairly easy reading and enjoyable reading. And they tend to be clean because they are young adult. I also really enjoy reading classic authors like Jane Austen and Charles Dickens, and I plan on rereading a bunch of those this year because I got a bunch of them for Christmas. Sometimes those books can be kind of hard to get into. The language is a little bit different, so it usually takes me a chapter or two to kind of get into that rhythm, but I do really enjoy reading them. A lot of you want to know what I read on, or what material I use to read. I do love the good old-fashioned book, but I do also own a Nook and a Kindle, and I have the Nook and the Kindle on my phone as well, so I can read pretty much anywhere. I have a lot of people ask what they can do to read more, and I think, like I said, it's just kind of redeeming those small moments when you can. I would also suggest starting small. If you really want to make reading more a part of your life, don't feel like you need to read like Harry Potter, because that is a 7-book long commitment. Start with something small and make sure it's something you enjoy. Make sure it's a genre that you enjoy, and if you don't know what kind of books you might like, I would suggest going to your local library and getting 4 or 5 different genres and read like the first chapter, and if there's something that sucks you in, stick with that. And I think it's important to remember that reading doesn't have to be this chore. I know that there are some things a lot of people have to read. I think that pleasure reading shouldn't be one of those, and so find what you enjoy and read that. I know some of you might have more questions. I would love to hear those questions. Leave a comment below. I would also love to know what you're reading and what else I need to be reading. And if you're interested in every book that I read in 2020 and what I am going to be reading in 2021, go ahead and follow me on Goodreads. I will leave that link below. Along with my Goodreads profile, we are also going to link the books that I mentioned in this video below, so if you are interested in reading them, you can purchase them there. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you for caring about something that I very clearly care a lot about. We will see you on the next LeggLife video.